Well, here's an earlier picture of Dianne Feinstein when she was a congresswoman in her broken tricycle, laughing, at things broken when she's screwing up the world today. That must be just ingrained in her personality. Who knows? But that's not Dianne Feinstein, of course. She couldn't have looked that good. Anyway, but this is basically like our lawmakers today, They're looking down at everything that's screwed up and all broken, and they're laughing, and they're getting paid, and they don't give a shit. They got their perks and incentives, right? So hang on to your gold and silver, The hell with the fiat. I mean, the fiat does buy stuff today, and I know. I'm in a world of reality. I know it's not how many ounces of silver you have, it's how much that silver really will buy, right? But we know what the long-range picture is going to be. And I don't want people being dissuaded from it, because I do know there's a cartel of silver bloggers out there that probably work for the Sprott Boys indirectly, and that's why they tell you a bunch of BS and they blow smoke up your whatever. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right? So anyway, looking at the chart here real quickly from Kitco, two metals that are ignored by the silver crowd largely, and I know why platinum is ignored, because it's too damn expensive, right? It's pretty expensive stuff, and it's very volatile. But right now, platinum actually is worth more than gold in dollars. Amazing, right? And, a lot of people, I heard stories about why platinum should be worth not that much. The other silver's like a much shorter supply. They'll pull out this stuff like facts, and there are facts. There's a lot of platinum in the earth. The trouble is you got to get it. You got to mine it. It's very expensive to mine. And why it's going up right now is because of labor disputes in South Africa. And they're not paying those people nothing. I mean, there's no jobs over there in South Africa, so if you got a job, it's a good thing. So if you got thousands of workers striking all the time and then getting shot by police with machine guns because they're striking, those are pretty damn determined strikers. Now, why would they be doing that? Because they're working for slave wages. So if they're working for slave wages, why is that? The price of platinum is too low. It's too low. So it's still too damn low. So, and the same thing with palladium. Platinum and palladium should run together. And I know some people tell me that there's pros and cons to both of them, but they're roughly about the same. As far as difficulty to extract. And palladium does have some unique uses that even platinum doesn't have, despite it having a lower melting point. But that's one other thing, But, if gold is going to go to the moon, palladium is going to go to Mars, okay? So that's just look at it that way. So if you want to get some poor man's gold, just don't think about silver, think about palladium. But, it's got disadvantages, mainly going to silver, okay? But if you're really stacked up on silver and you're really hell-bent on precious metals like me, get palladium too. Now, just look back recently, actually the last several years on his charts. It took a long time when we hit that 22 height back in 2008 for silver for it to get out of that. And then, it dumped down. It took a long time to get out of a range before it started taking off again. If you look at this, I know these charts aren't going to predict everything in the world, because if they did, people would be using them more. It's like if one person actually finds a super method with charts and they blab it to the world, they just destroyed that method. I mean, I don't like knock them, but it is a fact. If you got a racket, like you can figure out with the charts that you're going to make money, you'd never put it out publicly, because once you did that, you'd screw it up for yourself, because everybody would be playing that game and it'd be ruining it for you. Basically, that's what would happen. So, but if you just look at this common sense, the laws of nature are still reflected in the charts, and the laws of nature don't get hammered. I mean, they're like postulates. They can't get hammered by J.P. Morgan or anybody. It's like this is going to take a few years. This took a few years from 2008 to 2011. It's probably going to be 2014 where we have like triple-digit silver. I know it's after they've been pumping you up way up here. I know it was like the silver blogger cartel with the the Eric Sprott boys were all telling you, oh yeah, up here 40, it's going to 100, and it's been like this all this while. But probably will go to 100 by in 2014. That should be my best guesstimate. Now, just as some side note, yeah, I got an old girl here with Coors Light hat on. You know, I remember one time I tried to make a suggestion that we ought to get the Silver Crowd, us Silver Crowd, the little guys, that maybe we could bribe Ben Bernanke with a couple cases of beer to keep this price of silver up over $100. You know, have the Coors Light girl deliver it to him. But I don't know. That idea didn't seem to fly. I don't know. Maybe I need to talk to Eric Sprott. You know, the guy's got some more influence. But if we get Ben Bernanke to, you know, he is doing lots of QE, but it ain't bringing up the price of the metals. You know, that's because it's not getting out to the economy. But I think it will. I think it will. The QE, all that money that's being pumped in there. In other words, you know, they're buying $45 million in mortgage-backed securities plus another $40 million. So it's $85 billion between the two QEs, 3 and 4. So between those two QEs, all that money eventually is going to start building up behind the dam, and it's going to go ahead and burst at one point in time. That's the classic thing that always happens. Central banks don't even have everything figured out. But, you know, just hoping we can get the, you know, we could jumpstart the thing here, give Ben Bernanke a couple cases of Coors Light. But hell no, he's not going to do that. But, you know, what we could do instead is, you know, we could send him this bathing suit he could wear on the beach, you know. I'm famous. That'd be good for Ben Bernanke because I think he deserves it anyway. But as far as, like, you know, what's broken and stuff, actually it looks like J.P. Morgan is one of the things that is not broken, right? J.P. Morgan actually is making a lot of money. But, you know, it just as a side note, you know, Jamie Dimon, he got a salary cut in like a little more than half. He had like $23 million in 2011. And in 2012, like he has like a 1.5 base salary, 1.5 million base salary, which is nothing in New York City. Believe me, it's nothing. Yeah, right. Anyway, but and he had like 10 million incentive package. So he went from 23 million to 11.5 million in 2012, and he screwed up in some deal in the UK. But the company actually is making a lot of money. But when he went through the board of, you know, the board, they said, Jamie, you screwed up. We don't care if we're making more money. We can't afford to pay you anymore. So they chopped him down in half. So he's probably going to really go broke with that $11.5 million salary because the city of New York is pretty expensive, you know, I'll tell you the truth. So anyway, he probably could ride around his tricycle and save some money on gas, you know, like everybody else, like all the rest of us people out here. But anyway, just hang on with the gold and silver, and you just like I said before, eventually palladium. Like, in other words, with the platinum, you know, I bought some of that stuff, and I'm glad it's at least now it's up. But you know, I was saying eventually it has to be more than gold, and if you believe more than gold, you believe in gold, platinum is actually the better deal. A little common sense, but you know, I don't want to play day trader except once in a while, unless I see a steal, and it's like, you know, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. But anybody telling you to get out of the metals right now, don't listen to that stuff. Don't listen to it. I'm definitely not a silver pump and dumper at all, but I definitely know this stuff is going up. I know it is. Oh yeah, make sure you buy a gun to protect your metals too. You know, even if they're in a bank or you got them hid or everywhere else, you know, you're gonna have some around you anyway. So you need a gun too. You know, that's the other thing. This is going back to the old style way of money, you know, like in the Wild West, you know, guns and silver, right? Guns and gold and lawyers and everything else. So we're going back to the old style. And the Congress people up there that don't know what they're doing and are laughing at us, you know, with the broken tricycle economy, screw them. Screw them. They can have the paper because after a while it ain't going to be worth nothing anyway. I know that. I know that.